Want to know the easiest way to set up authentication in your Next.js application? Well, let me introduce you to the brand new Next.js Auth0 SDK. So you can probably tell how excited I am about this SDK for Next.js, my favorite framework, and I want to show you exactly why. So I'm going to start out here on the GitHub repository for the Next.js Auth0 SDK. I won't spend much time here, but I'll give a link to this in the description below so you can go and check out all the documentation if you need to. Now, I also want to show you the dashboard for Auth0, and I'm inside of my James Q Quick Demos 2 tenant. Now, if you're working on Auth0, if you want to follow along, you'll need a free account. There's a link below you can sign up with. You'll create a tenant. That's what I've got here. And what I want to do is create an application, a Next.js application, as you might expect, and have that to work on to show you how cool this SDK is. And to do that, I'm going to use the brand new Auth0 CLI. We'll have a link to the CLI documentation in the description below as well. So go and check it out, but I'll show you how this works. So we want to start with an Auth0 apps create. So we're going to try to create an application. We'll give it a name of Next.js video demo. This is a test as a description. And this will be a regular web application. So that's what type of app will work with Next.js. And then the callback here will be HTTP localhost 3000 /API/auth/callback. Now what this is when we redirect the user to Auth0, after they're authenticated, they get sent back where? Well, they get sent back to this route. I'll tell you where this route specifically comes from in a minute. The second part of this, the allowed logout URLs, in this case, this is going to be the same as the default in Next.js, which is where we run the application at localhost 3000. This thing will create the application. That's really great. But the really cool thing is from right here inside of the CLI, we can download the quick start code and we can look through this and I'll show you how easy it is to configure this SDK. So we'll do Auth0 quick starts download. Since I'm logged into that one tenant that I showed you before, I can go and choose which application in that tenant to download. So I'm going to download the Next.js video demo application. And now what type of app are we looking for? Maybe no surprise, but I think it's really neat. We've got lots of different quick start codes for you to look at and get started quickly. I guess that makes sense. So I'm going to choose Next.js here. This will download that quick start, and then I will CD into that directory, into the sample one, and I'm going to open that up inside of VS Code. Now inside of VS Code, we'll make sure we have all of our packages installed and then go ahead and run it to show you exactly what it looks like. So I'm going to open up the built-in terminal and I'm going to do an npm install command again to make sure we have all those packages installed. Now, while that's running, I want to show you that in our environment variables, we've already got, based on the application that we created, inside of this source code, we've already got all the credentials to connect to the application that we need. We've got our base URL here, which is where we're running this app now. The issuer base URL is basically the domain in your Auth0 dashboard settings, prefix with HTTPS. We've got our client ID, client secret, and so on. So we've got all the things in here to go ahead and run this application. So let's do that by doing an npm run dev, and this will start up our application on localhost 3000, and I'll show you exactly how this login process works. All right, so let's open up that new tab. And once this is loaded, we should see a login button here. When we click the login, it's going to redirect to Auth0, show us our login page. I've got an account in this tenant. If you don't, you can go to the sign up here to create a new one, but I'm going to go and log in. And once this part happens successfully, it's going to say, hey, this application wants to access your profile information. We'll accept that. Get redirected back to Auth0. And then notice that the login button is gone and you can see my information here showing up in the nav bar, which is really cool. Now, what is the setup to make all that work? You would think, that seems like a lot is going on there. Well, the SDK makes this super easy. So inside of pages, API, auth, there is this brackets ... auth0.js. This is what's called a dynamic route in Next.js. And what this does is this one file, by just having these 2 lines of code, will create 4 different endpoints to handle authentication. It will create a login route, a log out route, a callback route. That's the one that we saw that we put inside of the CLI earlier to configure the application. And lastly, a me route to get profile information. So if we have those login and log out routes, How do we actually trigger that login logout process? Well, it's just a route. So we make an anchor tag to send ourselves or send the user to that endpoint. And we can see that inside of our nav bar. So if we scroll down and search for /login, you see we've got a router link to send them to the API auth login route. That's the one that's configured for us. And then the exact same thing for logout. So if you're building this application, after you've done your configuration, then just add an anchor tag to send the user to /API /auth /login or logout. Now, additional thing that we're doing in here is checking to see if the user is logged in to determine whether or not to show the login or the logout button. And we get that information from this use user hook. Well, where does that thing come from? Well, we use the provider that comes with the SDK. Inside of our _app.js, we wrap our application with that user provider, which makes these hooks available to us in any component in our application, including in this case, the nav bar. So because we have those front end hooks and we have this one bit of configuration in here to handle those API endpoints, now we've got authentication working in our application. Now, the one additional thing we can do is on this page, if we look at the profile page, this thing is showing profile information about the user. So how does that work? Well, it uses those same hooks. So let's open up the profile page. It uses the use user hook. It grabs the profile information and displays it, but it also does one other really cool thing. There is a with page auth required higher order function that comes with this SDK. And what you can do is basically export that thing down here, just like this. This is in the documentation, but it will make sure that the user is authenticated before they can get to the profile page. So if I'm on the profile page right now, if I log out and then try to go directly to that URL, the profile URL, it's now going to not let me do that and send me to the login process. So that thing is already securing those different pages to make sure a user is authenticated first. Now there's also a hook to handle the authentication for API routes and several different things. So you can check out, again, the link below for the GitHub repository with documentation and examples. It's really, really neat, but hopefully this helped you understand how easy it is to get set up with authentication in your Next.js applications using Auth0. All right, hopefully you found that really useful and you'll give the Auth0 Next.js SDK a shot next time you need authentication. In the meantime, I'm thinking about doing a full series on building a full stack application with Next.js and Auth0 and some sort of database. If you'd be interested in that type of series, let us know in the comments below what type of tutorial you might want to see, and we'll try to get that done in the next couple of months. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.